Did she just poop?
Come on, guys. Ready?
Wait on you.
Showtime.
Hey, do you wanna see that movie? Do you wanna see that movie? Do you wanna see that movie?
Welcome to Hey, did you ever see that movie? I'm your host, Des, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host, Lynn.
Meteor shit.
And joining us again, the podcaster with 1,000 potions, Mikki.
Oh, just call me Billy. Everyone does.
And our resident horror buff, the podcaster with a degree in terror, Tony.
I just don't do quotes. I'll just say it.
Okay, today's pick comes from a listener. Eric wrote to say, I would love it if you could do Creepshow. I have such great memories of this movie, and still to this day, I cannot get through the cockroach scene. In my opinion, Jodie Verrill is one of the best characters in any horror movie. And of course, I want my cake, Bedelia. I know 5 is the limit, but I give it a 6 rewatch score, and I'm wondering why I'm not watching it right now. Probably because you're listening to the podcast. Thank you, Eric, for the request, and thank you for listening to the show. I hope we do Creepshow justice for you. Okay. Today we are doing the 1982 horror fantasy Creepshow. Creepshow was written by Stephen King and directed by George Romero, starring Hal Holbrook, Adrienne Barbeau, Ted Danson, Leslie Nielsen, among many others. As always, this movie will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, go watch it, then come back and listen to the podcast. And now it's time for another episode of Disaster Piece Theater. So sit back and enjoy the show. Welcome to Disaster Piece Theater, where me and my 2 co-hosts will act out one scene from the movie that we are reviewing for you this evening. So please, sit back, grab some popcorn, and enjoy the show.
Quiet on the set!
Camera speed.
Sound production, take 1.
I suggest you get out of here before I shoot you. You've had fair warning, and I will shoot you dead.
You can't shoot us dead, Richard.
Because we're already dead.
We want to see you, Richard. We dug a hole.
On the beach, Richard.
Below the high tide line. Here we come.
We just want you to come to the beach. Come with us.
Come down to the beach. If you don't panic, if you can hold your breath.
If you can hold your breath.
I can hold my breath a very, very long time.
Cut! Cut! Cut!
Okay.
Wow.
Mikki, who are you? Fucking Tony from The Shining?
I was trying to do it but I didn't realize it hurt when I did it. I was trying to do my throat and it hurt.
It's the first workman's
shit.
comp on the podcast. That's great.
Tony, I gotta give it to you. That was great, man. You were gargling. That was fucking amazing. I loved it. Okay, now it's time for Dez's 4 and 1 fun and 1 fake fact, where it will be up to my 3 co-hosts this week to decide which fact is total bullshit. Tony, you will be going last because there's no way I'm putting a fucking curveball past you tonight. Number 1, Leslie Nielsen had a fart machine in his pocket during the shooting. He would let it go off just before director George A. Romero would call out action, causing Ted Danson and the crew to crack up laughing. Number 2, the marble ashtray, which plays a major role in Father's Day, is featured in all 5 of the film's segments, if you look closely. Number 3, Stephen King's son made a cameo as the boy featured in the movie's beginning with the Creepshow comic book? Number 4. Originally, Creepshow had 6 short stories, but the runtime purposes on it, one had to be cut. The cut story was called Bedside Manor. It would later become the inspiration for Stephen King's 1987 novel, Misery. And number 5, the alternate ending for Something to Tide You Over has Richard in the gas chamber after a murder trial, laughing hysterically while the life is choking out of him, saying, I can hold my breath a long, long time. Mikki, which of these 5 facts do you think is total bullshit?
Well, can you repeat number 2?
Every week I'm repeating one for you because I can't fucking read. Okay. Number 2, the marble ashtray, which plays a major role in Father's Day, is featured in all 5 of the film segments if you look closely.
I'm going to say number 5 is baloney.
Okay. You think that there was no alternate ending showing the man choking in the gas chamber. Dylan, which of the 5 do you think is total bullshit?
The one about misery.
And Tony, which one do you think is total bullshit?
The one about misery.
Mm-hmm. It's the one about misery. And I suspect that Dylan has been checking the 5 fun facts while editing
I have
the
not.
script.
I have
Okay.
not.
Okay.
Don't forget, I am doing research on the movie too. I read all this stuff online. It had nothing to do with checking your facts.
Okay.
But, side note, because I'll
Yes.
jump ahead, they're creeping up on you, the one with the bugs. They
Yeah.
weren't sure they were really going to be able to film it. So they were actually going to do the short story The Hitchhiker, which
Oh.
turned out to be the last one in Creepshow 2.
Oh,
That was a creepy one too.
So that was actually supposed to be in the first one, but they said, we could do the bugs. We could do the bugs. And then they just put it off and ended up being the second one.
I'm glad they did the bugs, but we'll get into it when we get there. With a budget of $8 million and a box office gross of $21 million, this movie was considered a moderate success. Of course, it went on to be a cult classic. Dylan, will you give us a synopsis for this gem of a creep show?
Absolutely. A compendium of 5 short but terrifying tales contained within a single full-length feature. This film conjures scares from traditional boogeymen and portents of doom. In one story, a monster escapes from its holding cell. Another focuses on a husband with a creative way of getting back at his cheating wife. Other stories concern a rural man and a visitor from outer space, and a homeowner with a huge bug problem and a boozing corpse. There we go.
Nice. All right, kick it off.
All right. A stern starting
Wow.
off great. Starting off great. Really good. Really
I'm going to
good.
take the steering wheel back.
Please do.
A stern and tyrannical father named Stan
Honey,
gets angry
shut
when
up.
he finds his young son Billy reading a grisly horror comic entitled Creepshow. After arguing with his wife and slapping Billy in his stupid little face, Stan throws the comic in the garbage. A skeleton figure appears outside Billy's window, the creep, who hosts the stories in the comic book. A wind draws the comic out of the garbage can, and the 5 stories within the comic come to life, dissolving from an illustrated comic frames to live action frames at the beginning of each story, and vice versa at the end of each story. Each story is linked by short animated interludes. Okay, Dylan, why don't you pass this off to our hosts?
You're a jackass.
Yeah, that was fucking awesome.
Was it? All right. Let's pass it right to Tony. Why don't you start us off with some thoughts on this opening scene, including Stephen King's son getting a smack in the face?
Well, I mean, that's one of the biggest stories. That Stephen King was surprisingly protective of his son. Wouldn't leave the set. Wouldn't leave. I guess he was within 6 or 7 feet of him at all times. And he actually pulled Tom Atkins aside. He's like, "You're not really going to hit my kid." And Tom Atkins like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to slap the shit out of him." Just because how often do you get to fuck with Stephen King? So he basically says, "No, I'm not going to hit him. I'm not going to hit him." But if you look in actually, because I'm a geek this way, if you slow the film down, you'll see he actually slaps himself when he turns away.
Really?
So it's like they didn't want to risk. There's a quick cut where Atkins is doing that, putting that swing in the hand, and it cuts to his reaction. He's actually slapping himself. to get the desired effect. But yeah, I mean, it's great that Big Joe Hill, is in the movie. I think that's really like a nice little. I mean, like the movie doesn't have enough stars to begin with. You just add
Right.
another one, for a future star. And not for nothing that when I first saw, I was 12 when I first saw it. I saw it like in the first release, one of the few movies my dad took me to. So this movie is like a huge nostalgia for me.
Mhm.
Sitting in the theater and looking at his room, going, "I have that figure. I have that Rodin hanging from the string. I have the Frankenstein poster." It's like, just I got it, got it, got it, got it, need it, got it. So it was just, and tr- the the way the film was filmed, obviously cartoon comic book style, the lighting, everything about it just is so beautiful. Like there are a handful of movies that I could just put up, freeze frame, print it, put it on a wall. Suspiria, Trick or Treat, and Creepshow. Those are the three that any frame could be something, could be a piece of art. So I mean, even just a simple shot of a jack o' lantern in the window, the way it's lit, the way it's framed, beautiful. I'm gonna geek out over that all night tonight. So I'll pass it off there.
So Tony, let me ask you, was it Halloween in the
It
movie?
was it was Halloween season, but it never said Halloween. We don't ever see trick or treaters. We see nothing like that. The jack o' lantern in the window is the only thing that even remotely refers to it's Halloween.
And this movie was released shortly after Halloween.
It was supposed to. It got released limited before the summer, and then they said they did some test screenings. Boston being one of them. Revere was where I actually saw it, and they
Okay.
had a big celebration for it. And they had a big sheet cake with the poster in the frosting. So that's actually I was actually one of the at the screenings, and then they released. I think it was a wide release. I think in November of '82, if I remember correctly. So I mean, yeah, it was testing out, see how it was doing. Then they realized we can't go up against Halloween 3: Season of the Witch. That was the big release for the Halloween season of '82. So they couldn't go up against it. They were afraid to, and then just did that.
Now, Tony, as a young horror buff, did your parents support your horror obsession, or were you smacked and had your comic book taken away?
I my parents were shockingly defendant of me. I had so many meetings with guidance counselors and relatives who thought I should go to therapy and something wrong with that boy and the whole thing. And my parents, they didn't buy me the things that I wanted. I had to buy my own Fangoria magazine, I had to buy my own figures and posters and stuff. But they never said don't watch that. They never said don't do that, which is really I mean, I have an 11-year-old now and I'm letting him be a kid as long as possible. I'm being the parent that I didn't want to have, which is not fair. Feels hypocritical, but I don't want him to see things that he can't unsee yet. When
Right.
I feel that he's really ready, then we'll start. He did watch Creepshow. Creepshow is one of the ones he wants to see because I felt it was more monster and comic booky than
Mhm.
anything else. So he's seen that. He's seen this, and he's seen The Thing. Those are the two horror movies that he sat through, and Trick or Treat. We forwarded through the werewolf scene because the boobs can't. Nudity is terrible, but violence is fine. Go figure.
Yeah, we've
Um,
said on this show before, I saw an American Werewolf in London way too young, and I wish I hadn't.
right. So my parents, long answer longer. My parents were surprisingly supportive of me.
Cool. Um, yeah, I mean, I didn't I saw this on HBO when I was a kid. I probably didn't see it until I was maybe 14 or 15. I definitely didn't see it in the theater. Um, they said that Tom Atkins wanted the role of Geordie originally, but Stephen King got it because Romero wanted him to have it. And from what I understand, King is embarrassed of his performance. Is that right? And
Uh, yeah.
yeah, he says that Romero forced him to go over the top with it. I thought it was great. We'll get to it when we get to it. I also heard they used a real skeleton for the creep. Is that
hmm
right? Yeah. Okay.
Um, I don't think it was for the creep. It was somewhere else in the movie. I don't remember that one.
Yeah, I
I
was
don't
pretty
remember.
sure they said they used it for the creep, but maybe it was for uh, Father's Day. I'm not sure.
I don't know. I don't that one I've not heard. I know they used real skeletons in Rocky Horror. I know they used a real skeleton in Poltergeist,
Yeah.
but I didn't know this one. I mean, Tom Savini is so self-reliant on his own effects and his own sculptures and his own everything. It would surprise me to hear that he took a shortcut by getting a real skeleton.
Right. They said it was cheaper to get the real skeleton, just like with the roaches later.
Maybe.
And the last thing I'd say about this opening scene is So they're showing us the creep outside the window, which I love the name, the creep. It's so cool. I always thought it was the crypt keeper or but obviously it's the creep. I love when they show the real creep and then it morphs into the comic creep.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was great because I didn't want to look at that dummy too long because it looked good, but it didn't look great. And then when they morphed it into the cartoon, it kind of helped my imagination see it the way I think Romero wanted me to see it. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
And the last thing I'll say about the soundtrack in this movie is easily in my top 5 of all time. Like this
Awesome.
one actually has a serious rotation in my house, as dumb as that sounds. It's like I can put the Creepshow soundtrack on at any time. I'm just like, it's my mac and cheese. It's like I'm
Yeah.
just gonna sit like, oh, this is nice. So,
Right.
it's just every episode has its own themes, its own sounds, its own everything. God, I love this movie. Mickey, what did you think? I feel like you're
Yeah,
just sort of
honestly, I thought it was so well done. Like you, I have a lot of nostalgia for this movie. I don't remember the first time I saw it, but I remember like, it's funny because we were watching it last night, and my husband has only seen it like once, like years and years ago, and this is not really his bag, but he actually enjoyed it. But like, he gets frustrated sometimes because I'll recite the movie along with the movie. um, it drives him nuts, but it drives me nuts when he does it too. But like I just have such nostalgia about this, and I remember my cousin and I, like I would push this on them all the time. I would push horror movies on my cousins that were younger than me, and I would literally sit there and my cousin like was so tortured because I used to walk around going, "I want my cake, Bedelia," you know what I mean, and like totally mess with him. But like my first my first memory of a movie was Trilogy of Terror, and I think I was 4 or 5 when I saw that,
Wow. Nice.
and I'm yeah, yeah, and I'm
No, to
still
this
and
day,
balls.
I can't with that one. I can't.
you know what?
There's
And the scary
balls.
thing is, so here's the scary thing about that before we get it's a little story, but I had an aunt and uncle that were babysitting me, and we watched that show. My mom was, like, going on a date or something, we watched it, and I remember being so terrified of that freaking Zuni fetish doll, and I used to call him the
Mhm.
Wow Man because the noise he made, he was the Wow Man. I can't believe I'm telling everybody this, but he, so they went out and they were babysitting me and they turned off all the lights in the house and chased me around making that noise.
Oh my
And
God,
so
no.
I was literally like to this day. So then I thought when DVDs and VHS came out, I'm like, I'm gonna buy the movie and rewatch it and rewatch it and rewatch it to desensitize myself. And I watch it now, and yeah, it's cheesy and corny, but he still scares the crap out of me. And to this day, I still have nightmares about that guy. But as far as Creepshow, like the nostalgia for me, I thought it was so well done. I loved how they were all the stories were so different. But they, and the way that every time the story ended, they would weave it into like a still from the comic.
Loved it.
The creep was awesome, and I remember watching that as a kid and looking at his stuff in his room, going, "I want that, I want that, I want that." So I love this movie. I thought the opening scene was really. I did not know that was Joe Hill though, so that's cool. I had no idea that little boy was actually Stephen King's son. But Tom Atkins, like he's been in a ton of like horror stuff. And I just remember hating him so much. Like I'm like,
Me too.
thank God that guy's not my dad. You know what I mean? But no, I thought
sweetest
it was
sweetest man. Oh, he's such a sweetheart.
Hey, that's why
really.
God made
Yeah.
fathers.
Best line.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes that my son hears a little too often.
Yeah,
That's funny.
maybe if I had a Tom Atkins in my life smacking me in the face, I would have done better in life. Who knows? I mean, was he that bad? I don't know. So Mickey was afraid to share that story, but she divulged that she shit her pants without a problem.
It's different.
Priorities, man. Priorities. It's-
Dylan, tell us about Creepshow.
Honestly, I can't add much more than what they said. I will agree with Mickey that Zuni doll is the scariest. Like I saw that when I was too young to see it, and I was terrified of it. And to this day, I'm still. I won't watch it. I just nope, can't do it.
Can anyone tell me the other two stories though? No one can.
Yeah.
It's only the Zuni doll. That's it.
Nope.
That
Amelia
scared the
was
hell
the
out of me.
Zuni fetish doll.
Yeah.
The first one was the twin sisters, and I forget their names.
Look at you. Go ahead. What's the second one?
And the second one was about the woman who the student thought he was gonna like seduce her, and then it turns out that she was like a witch, and she like
Mic drop. Nice. Good job. Impressive.
I remember Amelia though, and the scary thing is we have a dog named Amelia.
Oh, that's so cool. So, Dylan, are you going to take control of the ship again?
I'm going to try if you don't
All right.
take over.
Hit it.
All right. This is long, so bear with me, kids. Our first story is Father's Day. The Granthams are a wealthy family with a macabre annual celebration. Sylvia Grantham gathers with her family members Richard and Cass and the eccentric Aunt Bedelia on Father's Day. While they are waiting for Bedelia to arrive, the family members explain Bedelia's backstory to Cass's new husband, Hank, notably played by a very young Ed Harris. It seems that Bedelia's father, the now deceased family patriarch Nathan, was pathologically jealous of Bedelia. After Nathan had her lover murdered in what was written off as a hunting accident, Bedelia went over the edge. While caring for the elderly Nathan, Bedelia snapped and bashed Nathan's head in with a marble ashtray. The family conspired to make it look like an accident, and Nathan's massive wealth was divided among them equally. Ever since the time of the murder, which occurred on Father's Day, Bedelia visits her father's grave at the family estate, then joins the others in the mansion for dinner. This year, as Bedelia sits on Nathan's grave, Nathan's rotting corpse emerges from the ground and attacks her, strangling her to death. Nathan then exacts revenge on the rest of the family. Hank is squashed with a falling gravestone, the housekeeper Mrs. Danvers is killed, and Nathan twists Sylvia's head off of her body. In a final gruesome joke, he surprises Cass and Richard with Sylvia's head decorated to look like a Father's Day cake, complete with burning candles. So, Mikki, I kind of thought that killing Hank was an odd choice since he just married into the family and didn't even know the secret until that day. But I suppose poor Mrs. Danvers got it too. And do you think we assume that good old Nathan finished off Cass and Richard after the story ended?
Oh, absolutely. And you know what's funny is I remember when I was watching it last night, that scene with when Ed Harris is, drinking and then he falls and then the stone keeps moving. That used to scare the crap out of me. Out of all the things in that movie, that scene freaked me out the most. Just like because it was just the sound of it. And he wouldn't, and I remember thinking like, get up, like, what do you do? Why don't you know what I mean? Like, why don't you move? But yes, I do. I think that after the scene ended, I'm sure that they were party favors.
Tony.
Des, you gotta turn the TV off, man. I'm just seeing Total Eclipse from the Heart right next to you, dude. Killing me. It's all I'm paying attention. I'm like, I'm hearing words, but all I see is Total Eclipse of the Heart.
I got distracted by it earlier, yeah.
Yeah, but behind him was Duran
Susie
Duran
and the
a little bit ago.
Banshees.
It's an awesome station.
This and The Crate are my two favorites because it's just there's almost nothing wrong with this one. I mean, aside from the Ed Harris dance, which is a classic on its own.
That dance
so
was something
awesome.
else.
It's because so far the movie's just been all right. We saw a skeleton, we saw this. When that hand comes up, that is just dun 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 dun. It's like the music to go with it. You don't see it coming. It's silent right before it. It's just and Vivian Lanford, it's just her monologue right before that happens about the anger towards her father. It's just such a great scene. She's so
awesome.
Oh, so amazing. Just the guy who plays the zombie is actually the guy who plays Martin in George Romero's vampire movie Martin, John Amplas. So the reason they hired him because he was the skinny little guy. So when they put all the chess pieces and all the stuff on him, he would look like a normal guy. So that's the only reason he really got hired on it. But it just keeps the Romero family together, which is the one thing. Every commentary, every story, every behind the scenes, everyone will always say, Romero didn't build crews, he built families. And you see the same crew, the same actors, same extras are in every Romero movie, which is always kind of nice. You always like, oh, all right, so that person's in this right now. But Father's Day is just, such a great revenge story. And you hate the patriarch so much because we all have that relative. We all have that person we knew that's just like, my God. But yeah, it's just so good. I could keep going, but someone else take it. Run with it.
Well, stylistically, this one for me felt the most because I know this movie is 1982, and some of it looks like the 80s, like the one with Leslie Nielsen and stuff. But this one really felt like the 70s to me. Like it was like an episode of Soap. Like when it starts off, and they're dancing. Like I feel like I'm waiting for Billy Crystal to come in. Like this is soap.
That's a good reference right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very 70s. I thought I thought this one was fine. This was my least favorite, believe it or not, out of the 5 stories.
Oh,
It just went a little long for me. It just went a little, and when I say that, I don't mean I didn't like it because I did. I thought it was very good, but it went for so long that it kind of. I wish if they had compressed it down a little bit, it might have been a little easier to watch for me. Whatever, but it was still great. Um, I felt really bad for Bedelia. I did not want her to die. I felt like her father had been abusing her. And I felt like he killed Henry or he killed Hank because Hank was her lover. He was her husband. And I'm not saying that the abuse was like necessarily like,
Hank is
you know,
Cass's husband.
oh, okay. I'm
Peter.
sorry.
Peter was her husband. Yeah, he
Okay,
killed.
yeah.
He
He-
killed her new husband because he was
Yes.
jealous to take him away.
Exactly. But he was
Yeah.
abusing Bedelia for sure. Wouldn't you say he was an abusive figure in her
Yeah.
life?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
controlling.
Yeah. I listened to another podcast and they had all kind of hinted towards they thought that there might have been like some sexual abuse. It was never implied, but like the way he gets on top of her and the cake and banging the fucking stick and I don't know, but I felt like she gave him what he deserved. I didn't find her to be villainous at all, and I didn't want her to die in this
No,
story.
she's the coolest person in that whole thing. If you ask me,
Yeah.
driving like a lunatic, the hat and the hair,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, I
I
love
know.
her. And then she
was
gets it
awesome.
first, and I'm like, boo, I loved her.
So,
Mhm.
Tony, let me ask you this. So she's sitting at the grave, Bedelia, right?
Yeah.
And she's drinking the Jim Beam.
Yeah.
And she drops the bottle and the Jim Beam starts pouring into the ground. Is this what prompts him up from the grave? Because
Finnegan's Wake.
Yeah,
Yep.
because she says that he was a moonshiner, right?
There's a deleted scene because I know this stupid shit. There's a deleted scene where the silver-haired aunt, I forgot what her name is. She's in telling Hank and the rest of them. It's the intro scene where she's basically saying who Aunt Bedelia is, and goes over the fact that the father made his money murder for hire, bootlegging, moonshining. He
Yeah.
lists this like laundry list of terrible things that he's done to make their money. That's why we are where we are and why we owe her, because there was no questions with the will. There was no questions that we all cleaned it up. Everything is fine. Do I think she did it? I know she did it. And then it goes
Right.
back to the regular movie. So yeah. And the old Irish song or legend, what I'm using the wrong words, but of Finnegan's Wake is that you pour out the whiskey for the fallen, and that brings them back. Everyone says when the Jim Beam falls in, that's what makes them rise up and
Okay.
come back.
Yeah, because I noticed Romero made sure we saw that Jim Beam pouring into the ground. And Bedelia does say, you're a goddamn bootlegger or something
Yeah.
under her breath while she's drinking. So and then so we're gonna get Hank laying down, he trips, he takes the Jim Beam, he takes a sip and he trips and falls down. And Delin had said, the headstone is moving. And I'm asking you, is the corpse using like telepathic powers to pull? Because he's kind of like using his hands, and
Yeah.
so yeah, he's using his mind. To
Because
pull
if
that thing.
you look, he reaches over to get up and he grabs the hand, and all of a sudden Bedelia rolls onto him. He doesn't pull her; she
No.
rolls onto him.
Okay,
Right.
So it's like I feel that Nathan put her on him and to hold him down, and then
Totally.
he's using whatever power he has to drop it on him.
Yeah, I kind of felt the same way. Okay, cool.
I mean, he's
Delin?
got a lot of strength for a dead dude. He snaps Sylvia's neck like a twig. So he just cracks her right in half. All right. Anything else before we move to the next one, guys?
Tony, go ahead. Give us some more on this one. It's your favorite one.
It's dumb little pieces of trivia. The fact that the estate that they filmed it on, when they actually dug the hole in on the grounds for John Amplis to come out of,
Mhm.
Yep.
the next day the owner of the estate, his dog died. So
Oh,
they're like, well,
really?
we got a hole. They buried it in the hole. Stupid
shit.
again. We got a hole. We got a headstone. They left the headstone for the dog, and the
Aw.
dog is buried
Ah,
there. So
That's
it's
Kind of nice,
crazy.
actually.
yeah, it's just
Wow.
random things from that one.
Wow.
I think that's all I got for that one.
All
Yeah,
right. We
that-
can always go
that-
back if you think of something.
Yeah, like I said, that was my out of all of them, this was my least favorite, and I love them all. It's just because I had to pick one to be my least favorite, and it's funny because I know a lot of people really hate the one with Stephen King, and I found that one to be very like charming, and I thought
That
Stephen
was
King was great.
fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Um,
This just didn't feel like a horror movie. Did it feel like a horror movie to you, Mickey?
I think initially, like when I was younger, it did. Now, I don't want to. I don't know. I don't want to say maybe more fantasy. I don't know. It. I guess it's a horror movie, but it doesn't. Maybe because I've seen it so many times and I'm desensitized to it, it doesn't feel like a horror movie to me. And none of the. I don't. I don't know. I can't answer that one.
It was fun. I thought it was
Yeah.
fun. I thought it was fun when I was 15, and I thought it was fun now. So I always
Um.
just thought it was
Do you
good.
guys know? And I don't know where I heard this. And did okay. I know, Des. You said you have not seen The Mist. Tony, have you seen The Mist?
Hundreds of times.
Okay.
Tony's seen every horror movie, Mickey.
Love
Okay,
this movie.
I loved The Mist, and someone said that initially The Mist was supposed to be a short story and part of a Creepshow type movie. Do you know about that? I'm
I
glad it's not. I because I love the movie.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not too. I haven't heard. I mean, if I've heard it, I forgot it, but I don't think so.
Okay,
Because I mean, it was part Skeleton Crew. It's funny
right.
because coinciding with the release of the paperback, they released a 3D audio, which is pretty much just surround sound cassette, which I have still because it's just the thing slithering in the background.
Yeah.
It's complete surround sound in just audiobook. But I've never heard of it being part of an anthology. Thank God,
Oh,
because yeah, it definitely deserves its own.
yeah.
The
Okay,
movie is just a masterpiece.
it is. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Jordy Verrill. Story number 2, The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill. Jordy Verrill is played by Stephen King, and he's a simpleton who lives alone on his family's rundown farm. A meteor crashes to Earth, landing in his field, and Jordy has aspirations to sell the meteor to the local college for a small fortune, $200. He tries to pick up the meteor, but it's too hot and it burns his fingers. Jordy's solution is to pour a bucket of water on it, but it causes the meteor to split into two. A dejected Jordy sees his dreams of $200 go down the drain. Still, he resolves to try and sell the halves, which are now covered in a greenish liquid. Later that night, the crater where the meteor landed is now covered in a weird green plant life, as is everything that the meteor has come in contact with. Jordy notices his fingers have green wounds on them, presumably from the burns, but later he discovers the alien vegetation, which has now covered the entire farm. Jordy realizes that the alien plant life is now growing on his skin. As the night progresses, Jordy becomes covered in shaggy green weeds, causing him to itch. Jordy's itching skin makes him run a bath, but before he can get in, the image of his deceased father appears to him in the mirror and warns him against getting into that water, since water is what makes weeds grow. Jordy gets in anyway, and when morning dawns, Jordy has become a gigantic lumbering mass of alien vegetation. Desperate, he shoots himself in the head with his shotgun, revealing that the deep green weeds have already penetrated his brain. Afterwards, a radio announcer is heard forecasting heavy rainfall, suggesting that the extraterrestrial plant growth will further spread to surrounding areas. So, Des, I loved at very end here the touch of including King's fictional town of Castle Rock, as well as the real city of Boston on the mile marker sign that's already got the alien vegetation on it, so you know it's heading towards the city.
Yeah. What I loved about this one, this is what I thought was so clever about this is when I was a kid watching this, I never picked up that this is like an alien looking for a host. Um, it's this story is so much deeper than what meets the eye. You know, this character of Jordy, it's a very sad story, really, with a very sad ending when he says at the end, let me get something right. He just wants to fucking kill himself and just get it right.
Yeah.
And, I was just thinking, oh, he's got this fungus on him. It's not a fungus, it's an alien life force. So, it's got the host, it's got Jordy, it's taking him over, it's taking over everything. And Tony, did you hear? I had heard that they found King walking down the middle of a street, reading a book and drinking a bottle of Dom Perignon. Like I heard he was a little unhinged. Did you hear this story?
You mean just in general or during this
Well,
movie?
during the shooting of this movie.
Um, I've heard. I haven't heard he's unhinged as much as he's just Stephen King.
Okay.
I've heard he's really, really quirky. There was a story that someone was in the middle of, you know, after hours, the crew would be sitting around, everybody be hanging out at the hotels drinking. Everybody would wander room to room. Stephen King would wander and grab a drink, whatever. And someone would be telling a story. He would literally just look at them and get up and run out.
Oh shit.
And they're like, where the fuck did Steve go? And so the next day, the crew would go to Romero, and it's like, I think I said something that really pissed off King. And like, well, what were you talking about? He's like, oh, the blah, 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 this. He's like, oh no, that's just the way he is. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I checked in with him, late last night. Something you said inspired him to write something, so he had to get that thought out. So he literally, you could be mid sentence, he will get up, run out, and write just to go write. Because it turns out the
Oh.
guy was doing it was two crew members doing an interview between Tom Snyder and Charlie Manson, playing the roles, and he was doing Charlie Manson. And when he got in the middle of it, King got up and ran out. And it turns out he was in the middle of writing Christine while he was on set of Creepshow. And there's, in the first like 100 pages, there's a Charlie Manson reference. And he basically, yeah, that's me. That's during our conversation, he got up and went and wrote that chapter.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
it's funny because
Oh, wow.
Christine's actually named after Romero's wife, Christine Romero. So he named the car after George Romero's wife.
A movie that I would really like to do eventually, because I love
Interesting.
Christine.
Yeah,
One
I
of
do
my
too.
favorites. Tony,
Interesting.
so this scene, you're seeing it the way I'm seeing it. Do you think this is an alien life form looking for a host, or do you think it's just an alien fungus?
I think it's an alien fungus, because if it was an alien host, it wouldn't have let him kill himself.
But
I think
maybe it didn't understand what a gun was,
all right, if we want to go there, I suppose I can't argue it. I think if it was just a thing taking over the road, the signs, the chair, the bottle, it doesn't know what it does. It's a thing that's going to take over everything. But I do agree that it's definitely a sad story. Everyone always, oh, that's the funny one. No, it's not. It's tragic.
No, it's
And
very
those are stories that I don't like. I generally, like, as soon as that one comes on, I'm like, oh fuck, I'll look at my phone for a while, because it's the Frankenstein King Kong theory. It's like Frankenstein depresses the shit out of me. King
Yes.
Kong actually makes me cry at the end,
Me too.
because
yeah.
all he does is he's just doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I crawl up to the building. I'm doing what I think I should do, and you die. It's like, he's not a monster. He's just doing. He's King Kong
does what he
being King
does.
Kong. Yeah.
King Kong is a giant puppy, and I am not watching anybody kill the biggest puppy ever. That movie destroys
Yeah.
me at the end. No
Exactly,
thanks.
and Frankenstein the same way. He was brought back to life, doesn't know what's going on, and they're chasing him down. He's trying to like be good with a blind man, trying to play with a little girl, and it just goes bad. And it's a sad story. This is the same way, and I agree. You're right. Let my luck be in just this once, just to kill himself. It's like Vera Luck's always in, always bad. It's a sad story.
It's
but
the
it-
darkest
good,
out of
yeah.
the five, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As
The only
silly.
good Frankenstein is young Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Hard to
Yeah.
argue that.
Mickey, what'd you think of the green slime?
You nunghead. I really think it's it kind of like, it's funny because I was watching it last night, and granted, it almost, when you think about it, especially when they end it and they show the sign, it's almost like the 80s version of like, sort of like The Last of Us, where like the stuff is just creeping all over everywhere.
Oh,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Mm.
I think I that scene always, that story always kind of like, kind of like you feel it when you're done watching The Mist. You're like, oh, like somebody punched you in the stomach. Like,
Nothing's like watching the end of the Mist.
it's
Oh,
like, it just
shit.
makes you like so sad. Like, you're just like, God damn, this poor guy. Like, clearly he's a loner. He's never been married, that you can tell. He lived his whole life alone. He has no, social skills. He has nothing. And he's like, oh, yay, I found this cool thing. And fuck, now I screwed it up. You know what I mean? And it was very sad. I think, that was the most depressing out of all of them for me. Always has been. I thought he did a good job for what it was. But it definitely was not my favorite out of
Yeah.
all the stories.
If they had used the more dramatic actor in that, I think I think it would have been too heavy. I don't even think I would have wanted to watch it. I think that the goofy performance over the top that Stephen King delivered made that episode watchable and fit the movie. I think it would have gotten too dark if it had been a a dramatic actor.
That's
So
a
then
really
what'd you
Good
think?
point.
definitely. It's
Yeah.
funny because the music for it is straight out of Tales from the Dark Side. If you remember that show,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
it literally is the music because they were worried that that one wasn't gonna fit in the movie. So if they ended up taking it out, you'll notice it's around a runtime that a half-hour show would be with commercials. They figure they could just
Mm.
pull it out, throw it at the TV show because Richard Rubenstein and George Romero did Tales from the Crypt. So
Oh,
they were
that's so
thinking,
cool.
this didn't work, and then somebody wants us to take it out, doesn't flow. We could just put it on TV, and we have it ready to go.
Do you guys think that the green fur made it across the entire globe?
Oh God, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
had to.
They
There's no
couldn't
Totally.
stop
stopping
that.
How do you stop, especially with the voiceover on the TV? Hey, we're expecting rain. It's like
Yeah, I
that's
love that.
great.
I love that. Yeah, you need a lot of Roundup to get rid of that, right? Oh shit. Dylan, did
All
you have any
right.
thoughts on that one, or you good?
So I hadn't seen Creepshow in a very long time. I saw it probably in my teenage years and hadn't seen it but the one thing that always stuck with me was Jordy Verrill, was the green stuff. Like, you can't forget it. And I honestly really liked King's performance. I know he thinks it was a little goofy, but honestly, it just worked for me. Like, it was memorable, it worked for me, and I liked the story even though it's a sad one. Like, it stuck with me for sure.
I liked it too.
I just find it amusing that everyone thinks, though, the horror fans are all these heavy metal, heartless bastards and everything. It's like we're sitting there going, "It made us cry."
Oh, it
It's
did.
like
It-
we're the ones with the feelings and the empathy, and it's like it's
Yeah.
like it was supposed to be the one you laugh at, and no, we're not going to laugh at. That's sad.
No.
Tony,
no,
it was funny.
it's
I told
sad.
you that I watched Eddie and the Cruisers last night, and while I was watching it, because I thought I had seen Eddie and the Cruisers. I'm like, of course I've seen it. I had never seen it, and I watched it. It was fucking so good. Tom Berenger playing the co-leading role, young Tom Berenger, just so good. And I'm like, is this the fucking guy from Streets of Fire? I'm like, it can't be the same actor from Streets of Fire because that guy couldn't act, and this guy is fucking amazing. It was the same guy. It was Michael
No.
Pare.
No,
Oh, I
I
love
couldn't-
Michael Pare.
I couldn't believe it
Ugh.
was Michael Pare. He was so fucking good, and the movie was so fucking good.
I love that soundtrack.
Yeah, oh, I love it too. But I mean, the movie itself was like this great, like, mystery, told in past tense, and it was just really good. And then it had the hook ending that you just want in a movie like that, where you're just like, yeah, Eddie. And then I stayed up too late and watched Desperately Seeking Susan again. Sweet. And
wow.
and what I took away from that is no woman can say no to a guy named Dez. Ah, look at the bag.
Oh,
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Here we
Here we
go.
go. Let's keep rocking. Fucking loser.
Dylan.
Dylan says no to me like nonstop.
Every day.
Every
Oh, my
day.
gosh.
At least I keep trying.
All right. Story number 3, something to tide you over. Harry Wentworth, played by Ted Danson, is awakened by a knock at his door from Richard Vickers, played by Leslie Nielsen with his luxurious white hair.
A dramatic Leslie Nielsen, I
Yes.
might add.
And the funny thing is, it's like, did he have white hair since he was like 12? Like,
Yes.
he just,
Pretty much.
I don't know if I've ever
He
seen
was
him without
born
white hair.
50. He was born 50. He came out of the womb at 50.
Oh my gosh. It seems that Harry has been having an affair with Richard's wife, Becky, and Richard has come to confront him. Instead of attacking him, Richard plays him a cassette of Becky's terrified voice begging Harry for help. Harry accompanies Richard back to his private beachfront estate, where Richard forces him at gunpoint to climb into a hole in the sand on the beach. Burying Harry up to his neck, Richard then connects a television that displays live footage of Becky, also buried up to her neck in another location on the beach. The tide is already starting to come in and wash over her face. Harry realizes that they will both soon be dead. There's no reasoning with Richard, who seems to be taking great delight in his revenge. Richard abandons Harry and goes back to his beach house, where he watches the drowning deaths of both Becky and Harry on video monitors. Before the last wave covers Harry's head, he vows revenge on Richard. Later that night, Richard is alone in the beach house when he seems to hear voices calling him. While he showers, 2 shuffling figures enter his home, defying the many security cameras and alarms that Richard has in place. When Richard emerges from the shower, he hears somebody in his house and immediately thinks it's Harry, somehow still alive. He is terrified to discover that the invaders in his home are waterlogged corpses of both Becky and Harry. They're now both zombies covered in seaweed with green pruning skin. Richard's gun has no effect, and the zombies taunt him the same way he taunted them. And we finally see Richard, now completely insane, buried on the beach in the same way, waiting for the tide to come in. I can hold my breath for a long time, he yells crazily. So Tony, Des, and I had a conversation about whether or not you could get yourself out of that hole. I say yes, he said no. The internet sided with him. After many hours of, unless you had like many hours and decent strength and endurance, you might be able to get yourself out if the sandwich was dry, which it was not for poor Harry and Becky. So I was wrong.
You're not a horror fan unless you've tried this. So,
Tony,
unless you've
come
been with
on.
your friends at the beach
Oh,
going, dude,
shit.
do me a favor. I'm going to kneel down. I want you to bury me up to my neck and let me see if I can get out. I got out every single time.
Did you really?
Granted, I didn't go in like the wet. You know, I'm not an idiot. I don't trust my friends that much to not get me out. So
yeah.
yeah, but I got out. I mean, I've tried it at least twice,
Okay.
and I was able to
love
get
it.
out. But of course, the wet sand is going to make it harder. You know, can't get any leverage. Blah blah blah. Okay.
Right.
See, to me, this was the funny one. I don't know if that
Yeah,
what that
it
says
is
about
funny.
me, but it's like, and it's not just because Leslie Nielsen is. I know him as a comedic actor. It's because it's just such a dark. His humor is so dark
Twisted.
with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it,
And
and
he's maniacal.
yeah, good word.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
So yeah, it's just he's so just the way he plays it off. It's like, oh, you know, you really should get these cables tightened. I'm surprised you haven't seen the degrading in the image. It's like he's so good in this. He possibly could. This could be the best performance next to Aunt Bedelia in this whole movie for me because he's so
Yes.
he's getting his point across, but he's so distracted and just such an asshole, and I love it. And then I mean, Ted Danson's just a doofus anyway. What are you gonna do? And
Is
you
this
know,
pre-Cheers or is this during Cheers?
this is during Cheers.
Is it
Okay.
during?
Oh.
I thought it was just before Cheers.
I thought Cheers started in '82. That's why I thought it was like on and doing his thing. I could be wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought this was just before he became
Cheers
big
was
on
82 to
Cheers.
93, so he probably just got on it.
Yeah. Yeah, the woman who plays the wife is actually Galen Ross, who's the female lead in Dawn of the Dead.
Oh yeah.
Right.
So I thought
She
Oh,
that
went
I
on
didn't
to
know that.
to direct a lot of stuff too, didn't she?
yeah. So just
Awesome.
another random little thing. It's just I my thing was always like, can you really stretch a cable from the house a mile?
Fuck
like
yeah.
that always was the thing. I was like, he's not going to get that crystal clear signal on a mile cable. I'm sorry. It was
I
a
did
simple
not
video
ask
camera.
for any realism in this entire movie. I was fine with anything they served me. I was like, okay.
It was, and just when the final reveal of them, it's like I did not see them looking the way they're going to be seen. Like that was some fun, inventive makeup right there on those
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the voice effects. I mean, just between Gray
And
and
then
them,
like when he shoots them and like the black water comes out.
yeah,
That was
it's
so good.
watery. It's so good. It's just
Yeah.
attention to detail of everything on all of them are just. Tom Savini is always and will be always my favorite special effects.
Me too.
guru.
I love him.
I just wish he wasn't an asshole.
Is he an
Oh, is
asshole?
he?
Oh, he's not
Really?
he's not good to his fans. I feel
Aw,
too many
that's a bummer.
stories. I've had one experience which was okay, one which wasn't, and you can always say you're having a bad day, but once you hear you're known for having a bad day, it's unfortunate.
Yeah. That's too
Yeah.
bad. I love him too. Tom's like even like Bruce Campbell. Like I met Bruce Campbell at his book signing and he was so lovely and so funny, you know, and he took 10 minutes out of his day or whatever. But like I feel like I don't know, Tom Savini, you know, so many kids, you know, see your stuff and want to do what you do. You know, at least, you know, I don't know, you don't have to like spend an hour with them, but I hate when people are like, excuse me, I hate when people that have that kind of influence over other people abuse it and they don't. I'm not saying you have to be nice to everybody because you're entitled to having a life, but like you said, when you're known for having a bad day, then that you
Yeah.
know.
When you have your table at a convention and you're looking at your phone instead of talking to people who are paying money to get your autograph, you're a dick.
Yeah.
It's just,
That's bullshit.
and again, I have friends who know him who say he's great guy, give you the shirt off his back, and I hope that's true. I've just heard more
A lot of stories.
a lot of
Yeah.
stories of just people like, the all right, sign it, move, sign it, like not even to look up to have a conversation. And that's all people want to do with him is because they idolize his effects. I mean, Friday the 13th, Dawn of the Dead, acting in Night Riders.
Mhm.
George Romero gave him Night of the Living Dead to direct. It's
Right.
like
Right.
all his stuff is what everybody our age grew up watching. Like that,
Right.
when you saw someone's head explode, you saw a knife, you saw a machete, he did it. He did it
Yeah.
better than anybody.
Yeah.
You
He
know,
was
you want a
awesome.
werewolf, you go to Rob Bottin, you go to, Chris Wallace, you go to them. Those are the creature guys. Savini was the guy who killed people really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And speaking of Savini, and then also talking about The Walking Dead, I read a story about how George Romero invited this young kid to come on set and check things out because he was interested. And lo and behold, years later, that young kid is Greg Nicotero, who did
Mhm.
all the Walking Dead stuff. And that's where he got his excitement and his start was coming on to the Creepshow set. So I thought that was kind of a little cool tie-in.
Yeah, they gave him a job in Day of the Dead. He
Oh,
actually
did they?
started working with Savini on Day of the Dead. If you watch Day of the Dead now, remember when they uncover the table and there's a head laying there? That's
Yeah.
Nicotero's head. He plays one of the soldiers.
Oh, no
Gotcha.
shit.
So I mean, he's all over them. So I mean, that's where he started. Was Day of the Dead was his
I was
first, big.
I was gonna say,
Right.
I thought he did I thought Nicotero did, like, worked either under Tom Savini or with him.
Yeah, Pasquale Buba, Tom Savini, and Nicotero and Berger. K and B pretty much is what came out from the Savini influence. Savini's got his school. I mean, and from what I
Yeah.
hear, it was good for the first few years, and then it just became all right, yeah, I'm just putting my name on it. He shows up for graduation, shakes some hands, and then leaves. Which is too bad because
That sucks.
Yeah.
unfortunately, the way the industry's gone, it's all CG. There's very few practical effects anymore, and when they do come out, they're so appreciative. Like I love seeing practical effects.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Me
Me
too.
too.
there's a movie that just came out, Malum, which came out about a month ago in and out of theaters. It's actually the director remade his first movie called The Last Shift, and it's about this cult. It's about the story of an officer on one of her first shifts on the last night a police station is open. And the reason they opened a different police station is because too many weird things were happening at the one she's at. And her father was killed on a raid of this cult, and the cult cursed everything. So it's basically a demonic, weird cult thing. And the creatures in this are just amazing. There's another one called The Void, which is another amazing creature heavy effect movie. When you see them, they're so refreshing. So it's just,
Yeah.
I know I'm off on a tangent again. I do that. Sorry.
It's okay.
Um,
It's okay.
That's
No,
all
but
right.
it's true.
but
I
yeah,
mean, there's a lot to be said for practical effects, I mean, yeah, CGI is great, and don't get me wrong, like we've all seen movies over the past, even 10 years where it just blows your mind what you're seeing, but there's something to be said for just a sweet, sweet practical effect. I love it.
yeah,
I love it.
So this episode is where this movie starts to take off for me because I love the last three episodes big time. And this one in particular, I really like this one a lot. And as I was watching it today, I was like, wow, this one really reminds me of The Vanishing with Kiefer Sutherland and
Mm.
Sandra Bullock. Have you guys seen it?
Oh,
So,
yeah.
basically, Leslie Nielsen saying, basically what he's saying to Kiefer Sutherland, drink the coffee and you'll find out what happened to your girlfriend. Trust me. I'm not saying I killed her. I'm just going to telling you that you'll experience exactly what she experienced. And in The Vanishing, he kicks Jeff Bridges' ass, and then Jeff Bridges is fine. Then you're never going to find out. And he's like, all right, let me just hold the keychain one more time. And they both get buried basically
yeah,
and suffocate. It's very very similar. I
Mhm.
love that movie. I love this episode. um, so he gets Ted Danza down onto the beach, and Ted's got the shovel, and Leslie pulls out the gun. He's holding a Smith and Wesson Model 29. It's a 44 caliber Magnum, so I mean it's a pretty powerful gun. But you could take a shot in the arm, a leg, shoulder. Probably even you could take a shot anywhere, but directly in the heart or in the face, and probably survive it to get to a hospital. I'm not letting this guy bury me. I'm attacking with a shovel. I'm taking a shot or two. If he kills me, he kills me. you're dead anyway. You're not. You climb into that hole, you're fucked, right? I mean, Tony, you taking a shot with the shovel?
I would. He was close enough that he could have got a swing with the shovel.
He
Yeah,
would have
I
been hit
agree.
once. Yeah, he would have got clipped for sure. But you got a chance anyway. The final scene with Ted Danson's head floating with
I
the
love
hair
that.
going up and the red halo around his head.
Such a
They
great
must
scene.
they must have put him in a tank, right? I mean, they had
Yeah.
Ted Danson
Yeah.
underwater.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
They put Ted Danson in a fish tank for sure.
So question you have to ask yourself, had he killed before? Had Harry killed before? Was this his first time, or were some of those other videotapes in his collection murders?
Yes. Now I saw those
Ooh.
videotapes and I'm like, I was like, those are like in a special place. Those are
Yes,
not
yes.
like in, like they're all lined up neatly next. It's like those are special tapes. That's something else going on there.
Yeah,
And didn't
and
he
he
say
owns that
someone's
piece.
name
Oh, I don't know.
when he was
Yeah.
looking through the tapes? Didn't he say like, "Let's watch da 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 da"? And then I
Yes.
thought he said a name.
He did say a name.
I
And
never even
he
thought of
also
this. That's
he was
awesome.
also noticing that when he gets Ted Danson down on the beach, he's like, I own this. He's like, help, help. No one can hear you. I own this whole thing. He'd done
Yeah.
this before. He had the reels, when he pulls the wire out of the sand and it's ripped, he looks at it like this isn't what usually happens. Oh, the tide must have taken the TV out, taken it out. I think he's done this before, and I think that collection of videotapes was past victims. He's a serial
I
killer.
think you might be right.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with that.
Yeah.
That's canon.
yeah,
Yeah, I
he
think
was-
it.
I was gonna say he was a great villain in this. I didn't see the Naked Gun Leslie Nielsen, which blew me away this time because I was sure when the episode started, I remembered him being the guy from fucking all those movies, and it wasn't. He was just this great villain.
Yeah, no,
So.
he brought some serious chops to it, and the fact that
Yeah.
he's making everyone laugh behind the scenes just makes it that much better.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
he's still who he is, but he was able to like turn it off and turn on this really good acting, turn.
Well, he comes
He's
from a
good.
drama background, doesn't he? Before he,
Yes.
Oh,
like back in the day,
interesting.
he did like lawyers and doctors and stuff, didn't he?
Yeah, he was a
Oh, that's so
dramatic
funny.
actor before all those Naked Gun things went down.
Just ruined it.
The one thing I really realized on these, because I watched this a couple of times for this podcast, was how deep the writing is. Like, you think these are stupid, like little, like in memory, I remember this being almost like the Twilight Zone movie.
Yeah.
That one that came out in the 80s.
Mhm.
And it's funny
John
because that
Lithgow.
movie, that movie steals a lot from this movie. Like, for instance, when they have the little kid, what was his name, that wished people into the cornfield? Tony or whatever. When he would do that stuff, the light would all turn red in the room, and
Yeah.
they were using that during the Tasmanian Devil kills and a few other scenes. And I said that they took that from this movie. So this movie definitely was inspiring a lot of things, TV shows that would come after it and movies that would come after it.
I mean, I really think it just comes down to the EC comics, the whole Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror. That's where all of this came from. I mean, in the same, you had the original Tales from the Crypt movie, which is still phenomenal. Peter Cushing, Joan Crawford. I'm not Joan Crawford, Joan Collins. Just an amazing movie. And then, of course, the 80s revival of Tales from the Crypt on HBO.
I
yeah.
loved that show.
It's
Yeah.
just,
Yeah, so did I.
I still just every once in a while throw one in. It's just they're really just great.
Billy
Yeah.
Worth did a Tales from the Crypt episode.
Which one? Billy
Oh,
Worth?
did he?
Billy
Billy
Worth
Worth?
did one.
And
Yeah.
we know you love some Billy Worth.
I do.
So, girls, what'd you think of this scene, Mickey?
The tide, I actually said to Tony last night, I said, this is actually a really cool idea. Like,
You
do you
best
know what
watch
I
your
mean?
ass.
Like, yeah,
Yeah, well, look out.
Oh shit!
like, I don't know. It's when you think about it, but then you also think like this guy is a sick fucker for like it's so much easier to just shoot somebody.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Oh,
mean?
the
Like,
level of torture is ridiculous. This
Yeah.
is
But that's
torture.
why he was collecting these videos. That's why I
Yeah.
felt like he didn't want to kill him like that. He went home. He made himself a cocktail. Was going to watch it like pay-per-view stuff.
yeah, I think yeah.
Actually,
but-
it's funny that you said that because there is a scene where he makes the cocktail and he's laughing and he's giggling and he's watching them and it switches all of a sudden. He's super serious. He's like staring
Yes.
at it. And at first I was like, does he feel bad? Like, that's his wife. Like, does he feel bad? And I was like, he doesn't feel bad.
No, you know
He
what it
doesn't
is?
feel bad.
He was watching it, and I think that's when Ted Danson's going, "I'm gonna get you, Richard," and he looks, like, right at the camera, and I think for, like, a second, he's like I feel like part of him is like, "What the fuck did I just do?"
I should go kill him.
What was cool
Yeah, like
stylistically there too was those shots were done in black and white, which I really thought was kind of fun. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think I liked this. I think out of this was probably like my out of the 4, technically 5 stories, I think this is probably my second to least favorite, I think.
technically six
Like
stories.
I actually liked Father's Day better than this one.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it was cool to see Leslie Nielsen in a non-comedic role. Um, and I thought he played it really well, and he was just so twisted. And clearly the guy has money. I mean, if you look at his house, you know
Oh,
what I
yeah.
mean?
He owns
Um,
that whole beach.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
money.
Big bucks.
So it's just I don't know. I think Des though, like you made a really good point. I think that that's what he was watching was videos of other. I think he's
Yeah.
that he makes a habit of this.
He's the collector.
He's a
Yeah.
sick puppy. Yeah, he's a sick puppy for sure.
And you touched on it
All right.
earlier when you brought it up, Des, the alternate ending is that
Yeah.
he actually calls the police on the 2 zombies. And they get away, and he goes like, "No, I got evidence," and he wants to put the videotape in of the zombies shambling around, but he puts the videotapes of them dying in the surf. And they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh no, I put the wrong one in. That's not what I was. Oh no, you got the right one." And they cut to the gas station. I can hold my breath for a long time. So it's still a really great ending to it, but it makes
Yeah.
you wonder if like you're right, the other tapes that are there put the wrong one in.
Did they find the
That's-
library?
That's so good. I never even put that
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
I mean,
That-
even the one tape is enough to put you away.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, the layers to these stories, though, all of them, even like I said, putting the parallels between this and The Vanishing, it's like you look at these short stories on the surface and they seem very basic, but when you really start watching them and thinking deeper into them, like the one with Stephen King, how far did this fucking parasite go? Did it take over the planet? Like this could be a 2-hour movie. Like
Yeah.
this could be like a sci-fi flick,
Yeah,
and
and
this
also
one too.
Yeah, also the fact that the zombies are bypassing the alarms, bypassing the cameras. It's just missed. Is he actually seeing them or is he not? Like, what's going on there? I mean, granted, he ends up if you use the ending where he ends up in the gas chamber, it could have just been finally he snapped. But
Right.
this ending where he ends up buried on the beach, you got to think they actually came in and took him.
I believe he can hold his breath
Hmm.
a very long time. He sold me.
I remember watching this too and being like, kind of like I was, later on with The Descent, just like, like, you know what I mean? When they're showing
Yeah.
to, I'm like, can't
Descent.
do it.
Yeah,
Descent is a
you can't
whole
help
other
it.
level of anxiety. That's
Yeah.
Oh,
genius filmmaking.
yeah.
But you touched on something else. The fact that they were just fog. It's like, how do you not compare that to The Fog? Romero's got Adrian Barbeau, who's married to John Carpenter at the time. John Carpenter has visited the set a bunch of times. Makes you wonder, like,
Right.
did you influence that
Mhm.
too? It's like the whole
Right.
incestuous like 80s were just amazing. It's the best time for horror.
Yeah. Everybody was
Yes.
just feeding off each other.
Oh, so good.
Mhm.
All right. So, shall we move on to story number 4?
Sure.
Hell yeah.
All right. Story number 4, The Crate. A janitor at Horlicks University, Mike, discovers an old dusty crate behind a grate under a basement stairwell. He calls Professor Dexter Stanley to investigate it with him, drawing him away from a stuffy facility gathering. At the gathering is Dexter's good friend, Professor Henry Northrop, played by Hal Holbrook. Henry is married to an obnoxious shrew of a woman named Wilma, Adrian Barbeau. Wilma, who is continuously drunk, embarrasses herself and Henry at the party, and it seems as if she's about to ruin the friendship Henry shares with Dex. Henry, who is somewhat meek, fantasizes about ways to murder her. Back at the university, Dex and Mike pull the crate out from under the stairs and realize that it appears to have been there since the late 1800s. A stamp on the outside of the wooden box indicates that it contains specimens from an Arctic expedition. When the two of them open it, They sense movement from inside the crate, and Mike is attacked by something when he pulls his arm into the crate. Whatever it is pulls Mike inside, apparently eating him as it goes, and Dex catches a glimpse of a horrible shaggy beast with huge teeth. Dex runs blindly from the lab and finds the only other person in the hall, a student named Charlie. Charlie goes down into the laboratory and finds it covered in blood, with no sign of the crate or the creature. Charlie and Dex find the crate back under the stairs, and when Charlie attempts to investigate, the creature attacks him and eats him too. Dex is afraid to go to the police. Instead, he goes to Henry's house, and he arrives while Wilma is away from the evening. He tells Henry the story about the creature, and Henry knows Dexter has to be telling the truth. Henry hatches a plan. He gives Dex sleeping pills and leaves him locked into the study, asleep. Henry writes Wilma a note concocting a bogus story designed to lure her to the laboratory. He gets there ahead of her and cleans up all the evidence of blood. Wilma can't resist Henry's trap, and she shows up at the university as planned. Henry lures her under the stairs, and her obnoxious ranting draws the creature out of its crate. It eats Wilma before Henry's eyes. Henry then chains it inside the crate and dumps the crate into a nearby quarry. When Dexter wakes up the next day, he and Henry vow to keep the secret of what really happened and let the authorities deal with the disappearances. The final frames show the creature in its watery trap, tearing the crate to pieces and presumably escaping. So, Mikki, this is probably the goriest of the stories, and I appreciate that though you see the monster, he's in garish lighting or in the dark, and you can't really suss out exactly what he looks like, so there's not enough time to pick apart that practical effect, and it's pretty successful.
Yes, this was my favorite story out of all of them, and I used to it sounds so twisted, but, like, I used to want that creature, like, I'm like, "I want him," like, you know what I mean? Like, I wanted, like, a stuffed crate creature so bad. I just thought it was so cool. First of all, I love Adrienne Barbeau. She was, like, one of my idols growing up, like, I don't know, she was just amazing. She's just amazing, and she played that part so well. She was so obnoxious, and I feel like I've known people like that in real life.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, the guy that plays, Dex, um, when he comes back to the house after all the shit goes down and he goes back to tell Henry what's going on, that acting, he was so incredible in that when he's like, "Duh, duh, duh, duh," like he's just blubbering and like he's like laughing and crying. That was so awesome. He was so good in that. And then poor Henry, like I've known a lot of men like that too. And you just like, no matter what they do, it's never good enough for the wife. So, um, I love that he was like, "I'm just gonna kill 2 birds with 1 stone," and I love that he did that, but I that was my favorite story, just everything about it, none of it really ever scared me, but and I also love that they also made it seem like the little noises he made, that the little chirping noises that the creature made, like, you're like, "Oh, I can pet him," you know what I mean?
Yeah, is he
No,
cute?
you really can't. But I used to want one of those so bad.
I also thought that the scene where the creature jumps out and grabs her, and she does the thing where she
doing
turns
that?
and well, it's like she turns and her face is in red and the blue is behind her, and it's so striking that
Mhm.
scene. It was like that was perfect. It
And
was
her
so
face,
cool.
and I love it and it almost like she did it like a comic because her arm is like, like
Yes.
straight out.
Yep. Yep. It just
I
looked
love it.
so good. It looked so
She was
good.
amazing. She can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned.
100%. Love Adrienne Barbeau in everything she does.
Me too.
Um, there's just too much to go on. It sets everything up perfectly. I mean, obviously it's the longest one. It's the most involved. But every character in the 20-minute, 25-minute, every
Mhm.
character is
Yeah, about that.
fleshed out. So you have layers of each one. You see the pain on Hal Holbrook's face. You literally can see where it turns. Him planning giving the sleeping pills. It's just, and the acting of Dexter, yeah, just the I don't even know what it was. Like that is
Yes.
his delivery is so insane. He's so over the top, can't believe what just happened. It's just so fucking good.
And you know what else too? Like I love how they really stressed how completely fucked and fed up Henry was because they kept showing him thinking that he was murdering her.
His
Like all the different things like, "Oh,
his
I shot her." You know
dreams,
what I mean? I
Yeah.
love those. I
Yeah,
love
me
that.
too.
because you're like, oh my god,
Yeah.
did you just do? Oh, all right. It's like, he should have.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, her reading the note being such a douche. Like, oh, of course you can't. Like, oh, what did you do now? Oh, she's like getting
It's like
off
she's
on it.
relishing in
Yeah.
the other person's agony. Yeah.
Can we also talk about the fact that she poured herself milk and like brandy?
Oh God, yeah.
It was so gross. I was like, what is she drinking?
And the fact she just takes it with her when she drives too, which is the best part.
She's like,
No
Yeah.
care in the world.
She's a miserable woman.
So Hal Holbrook also played Hamilton Johnson in Fletch, one of my favorite movies. It's where I recognized him from. So this story was the first one that gave me a jump scare. Actually, the only one that gave me a jump scare of all of them. When he's trying to put the lock back on the case at the
Yep.
end,
Yes.
he slowly got it on the chain, and I actually jumped. I'm like, okay, you got me. So I love that. I would have been disappointed if I had walked away from this movie without a jump scare. I disagree with you, Dylan. I thought they gave us some really good looks at this monster. I don't think they hit it at all. I mean, we get the one shot of it with the red behind it and the fucking lightning bolts on the wall behind it. We're getting good looks at this, and I thought the mouth looked great.
I just basically mean it's not like they put a spotlight on it and you really got to like to pick it apart. The lighting makes it so that you can kind of forgive some of the stuff that looks a little muppety.
Because
I thought it looked fine.
if you see the actual whole beast, it's really stupid looking. It's like, I love it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm in the same way. As soon as they came out with like My Pet Monster, I'm like, that's the closest I'm going to get to a Fluffy in the crate, you know? But
I have one of those.
we all should have one of those. It's because Fluffy it's all the head. And so if the head's this big, the body is only about that big. It's all head. And it's got this weird little pecs and little pouchy belly, and it's only got stubby little legs. It looks like a midget with a big.
It looked like a baboon. It looked like a baboon to me.
Yeah.
Tasmanian devil, huge teeth.
Oh,
the mouth looked great. When it bites into the college student's head,
oh God,
Yeah.
so
like,
good. The teeth marks.
it was so good. Yes, it really worked for me. I thought this was the most successful monster in the movie. I thought some of the like Father's Day, I thought the corpse looked good, but I thought this looked great. I thought this almost had the quality of the Twilight Zone movie in the mid 80s. Like, I thought this monster looked great for me. It looked great.
I think you're right in the fact that, Dylan, that the quick shots of it and the colors, the lighting of it saved a lot of the imperfections. The very saturated reds and saturated blues, they hid the fact that the blood was very, very runny and it wasn't very thick, so it looked, all you see is wet in a red light, so it looks even more violent than it probably really was. And they can get away with that with the rating. But
with that being said, though, Tony, when he's mopping up the blood on the floor, I thought this was some of the best looking blood I've ever seen in a horror movie.
It's definitely better than his, Friday. I think Friday the 13th is probably Friday the 13th Part 4 is. I can't believe I'm grading blood here, but Friday the 13th Part 4 is probably the good consistency, the good deep rich red. You go back to Dawn of the Dead, it's Tepra paint. It's bright red. It doesn't look good. The zombies are blue. He was still figuring things out.
Yeah.
Friday the 13th, he's honing it. He's starting to get a little bit better. By Creepshow, I'm going to work on some monsters because there's only creatures. There's not a lot of blood in this movie. So he was definitely getting it. But I think Friday the 13th Part 4 in 84, he finally nailed the recipe, I think. But on a totally like 10, 5, what is it? Kevin Bacon game. Hal Holbrook was in Sons of Anarchy as, I don't know if anyone's seen Sons of Anarchy. Gemma, who's the biker mama, her dad has Alzheimer's. It's played by Hal Holbrook. Hal Holbrook disappears, whatever. She goes to visit him. There's a housekeeper there. Gemma accidentally kills the housekeeper. And they do like, what the fuck? And she calls one of the Sons of Anarchy. They come up. I know somebody. I'll call somebody to help us get rid of the body. They make the phone call. The door opens. It's Stephen King dressed head to toe in black leather. He's like, my name's Richard Bachman. I'll get to work. And he basically leaves with the suitcase and nothing else, and everything's perfectly clean. It's like, so there's your 5 degrees of Hal Holbrook to Creepshow to Stephen King to Sons of Anarchy.
That's pretty cool.
So one of the problems I had with this was the ending. One, I wish Billy's death had been a little more graphic with the monster. I wanted to see him eat her head like cake as well. But my big problem is this. So this is where Hal Holbrook makes his big mistake. You don't take that bloody trunk and put it in the fucking trunk of your car. There is now blood evidence all over your car. It's like, just leave it under the fucking stairs. Let the authorities find this Tasmanian devil with a belly full of your wife. You're good. That's it. Everybody. I'd go there. I'd be like, yeah, we were all here at the school. We came here for whatever reason. You know, my buddy works here. He's a professor. We found this crate. We opened it up. This fucking thing jumped out, started attacking and eating people. We were lucky to get out of here with our lives. My wife is dead. You know, what are you doing? Putting this shit in your car. Loved the eyes
Mhm.
of the fucking monster. Loved the way they were drawn in cartoon. And I fucking loved that this monster escapes from the trunk underwater. So again, just like all these stories, is this Tasmanian devil now going to be like, you know, American Werewolf in London? These stories could go on and on past what we're seeing.
Oh, yeah.
These are buildups to bigger movies, to bigger stories, which I love.
Well, I'll connect the dots here. It's like, here's a thing that was in a crate for literally decades, dormant, sitting and waiting, somehow alive.
Hibernating.
What does it say on the crate? Where does it come from?
Arctic.
Antarctica. Some Sandra Carpenter. John Carpenter made the thing. The thing is infected the Tasmanian devil and is waiting dormant till somebody opens it up and allows it to be.
That is fucking awesome.
That's what it is.
I fucking
Oh,
love
boy.
that. Is that what
Oh,
it is, or
boy.
is that just your perception?
I think it all points to that.
I love that. It's fucking great. I love it even more now.
I like it. I'm going with it.
But I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that final scene with the water, they actually cast Adrian Barbeau's head, and it was supposed to float up and bob in the water,
Oh.
but they couldn't ever get it right. It kept going face down, so they just like, all right, fuck it, just go the animated scene. We'll put the eyes over because that's a cool shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fucking great though. I
Yeah, well,
loved
if
it.
her head had gone up, had bobbed up to the top, Hal would have been in big trouble.
Right,
Very
that's the other
quickly.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there are 6 stories here. They break the 6th story up into 2 parts. We're getting the first part in the beginning, and it's the voodoo doll.
Yeah.
And we're getting the second part at the end. And a lot of people forget that this is actually a short story because you're thinking it's an intro outro, but it's the 6th story.
it's the
And
wraparound.
it's one of
yeah.
my it's fucked up, man. It's a fucking story about a kid killing his father. I mean, literally that's what it is.
You're,
We'll
you're
get
jumping
there.
over
I
our
know.
bugs.
I know. We'll get there when we get there, but I just wanted to point out that we're not about to talk about the last story. So
No.
go ahead.
This is the final story, but it's not. It's not. All right. So our 5th story, they're creeping up on you. Upson Pratt, E.G. Marshall, is a neurotic business tycoon who lives in a sterile white penthouse apartment atop a skyscraper in a major city. It's New York, though. I'm pretty sure that they show New York City at some point. He communicates with the outside world via the telephone, treating his employees and subordinates in a cutthroat, heartless manner. One phone caller informs him that an employee, Norman Kastenmeier, has committed suicide because Pratt fired him. Pratt seems delighted rather than upset. Pratt is obsessed with cleanliness and has a huge phobia of bugs. Unfortunately, he keeps finding cockroaches in his apartment, which sends him on a rampage to correct the situation. He places telephone calls to the building superintendent and makes thinly veiled racial slurs. I don't know if you can call it thinly veiled. Racial slurs in an attempt to intimidate the man. As Pratt finds more bugs in his apartment, someone gets through on his private line. It's Norman Kastenmeier's widow, Lenore. She calls Pratt to curse him out for her husband's death. Pratt is amused by her melodramatic sadness until the cockroaches start to multiply. He finds them in his food processor, bits of them surfacing in the grain cereal he eats. An electrical blackout occurs and the roaches attack, swarming by the thousands everywhere in Pratt's apartment. Pratt retreats to his safe room, a climate-controlled sleep chamber, just as the phone rings again. Lenore Kastenmeier's voice curses him over and over, "I hope you die, I hope you die." And Pratt discovers that his bed is swarming with roaches. The roaches quickly cover him and Pratt suffers a heart attack. The power returns and the lights come back on, and the roaches are nowhere to be seen. Pratt's body lies inside the glass sleep chamber. The superintendent knocks at Pratt's door and laughs when Pratt doesn't answer, asking, "Bugs got your tongue?" Suddenly, swarms of roaches burst from Pratt's body, so many that they nearly fill the chamber. So, Tony, this one for me is probably the most uncomfortable watch because the bugs are just nasty and the whole thing gives me the Wiggins.
The Wiggins. Yeah, it's pretty terrible. In a bunch I mean, in a good way. And just E.G. Marshall is just awesome as such an asshole. I mean, there's nothing redeeming about him at all. Facial expressions just exaggerated. His treatment of everybody, and I think this is probably the most quoted one by me because any chance I get to go, "No, sir, Mister Pratt." Like anyone I gets a chance to do that is my favorite. It's just the cereal scene is the one that gets me every time because one, what are you making? Who eats that kind of like? Why are you
No.
putting it in a
Yeah.
food processor? It looks
My
gooey.
husband
Like
just
what do
said
you?
the same thing last night. What the fuck is he eating?
Yeah, and then just like it looks like it's bugs in it anyway, but it's like, oh, it's such a horrible. No, no, nope.
It's like, just eat the cereal, dude. You don't have to put it in the food
Yeah.
processor.
So, Tony, you heard they brought these cockroaches in from another country. Where was it?
Like Indonesia or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they brought in 18,000 of these things from Trinidad in a bat cave. They waded in waist deep into a bat cave. They brought 18,000 of these back. They had their own trailer on the set. They tried to keep it closed down. Um, you know, and I guess it's like 50 cents a bug, like when they do like Indiana Jones and Temple of Doom, where they bring a guy in that actually brings in like his roaches,
mhm,
and you spend 50 cents per roach. That would be a lot at 18,000
yeah.
roaches. And you can't hurt them. They have to be treated. So that wasn't the case here. They brought these things in. Apparently they were getting out and it was causing problems everywhere. And they just went in and set off a bunch of bombs and fucking killed them all. And they said that bringing these Trinidad bugs here into the United States actually fucked up part of the ecosystem.
They created a new
with
species.
cockroaches.
Yeah,
Yes, created a new species. So I thought that was pretty creepy in itself.
I
Pretty
guess
awesome.
this was the second to last episode they shot because they basically took over a university, and the university gymnasium is what they built all their sets in. So this
Awesome.
apartment was built in the gym, and then they used some of the equipment, some of the other things. Once they cleaned everything up, I believe the crate was the last one they were trying to finish, and the sets in there. If you look through the crate, they said you can still see if random bugs running around. I can't find them. I've looked, but it's like,
Oh,
and I guess it was
Yeah.
Tom Savini's the one that I guess his quote was like that place that they rented from has been obviously done into condos, whatever, but there's still a roach problem in that area because of that movie.
absolutely.
It's like, oh my god, they
Wow.
really they really screwed something up with that.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
they
not
were breeding
not so
them.
smart.
But I mean, what an effect. That ending when they all come out. Oh, terrible.
Well, I could not. I don't know if you could have paid me any amount of money to film that skit.
No, no, no.
With him
It's
on his
disgusting.
chest and running on his feet. I'm like,
Blah.
oh,
Cockroaches don't bother me as much as like spiders. Being a painter, so we have painted in some really bad locations. Like we did the BHC, which is the Brockton Housing Authority. And I've gone into some places where we went in and we had to leave, where I'm not even exaggerating. Like literally cockroaches coming down the stairs in like waves, going up the kitchen walls in waves to where you walk in and you just can't go in the unit. I mean, more cockroaches than are in this scene, and that's no exaggeration. I'm talking about like it looks like CGI.
nope.
I've walked into these situations. I thought this was probably the sexiest of all of the episodes. Like it looked like big budget. Like this apartment looked really good for 1982. I really love the way they put that old fashioned jukebox in this really like 2001 A Space Odyssey looking room. It was very cool.
The juxtaposition of
Um,
it, yeah.
Mr. Pratt gets the best lines in the movie. One of them was he says,
Careful, careful.
he said, he says, George, you did well. Now go out and fuck somebody. I was fucking laughing my ass off. These are fucking amazing lines. And he's doing that thing where he's not really talking to other people too much during this. Like he is talking to people on the phone a little bit, talking to Mr. White through the door and stuff. But he's carrying on this like one man dialogue to this whole scene, and it's very entertaining. He delivers it very, very well. And an actor that couldn't pull this off, it wouldn't work. It's almost kind of like in talk radio, where I could just listen to him deliver these lines solo, and it was very entertaining. And I thought this guy really delivered that super well. Yeah.
He's just another classic actor from back in the day that did all these. I think, if I remember correctly, he's in 12 Angry Men. Was that? I'm not sure if that was his.
Yeah, I think that was his big moment.
So I mean, he's definitely got the chops, and for him to be in this movie was like, oh no shit, he's doing this. He's slumming today, or what? So it was kind of
What else was
nice.
cool, the character building on Mr. Pratt too, which is kind of cool because you hear him talking like they say the one guy died and he was good. Now we don't have to fucking put this prick on the board. Don't go too far after giving out good news. It's like they're wanting you to hate this guy, but he delivers a line where he says, I'm from fucking Hell's Kitchen. I know how to kill a bug. So we're learning that this guy comes from nothing and has built this empire and is not like a trust fund baby. He didn't have things handed to him. So he's tough. Mr. Pratt is tough. He's not a pussy. And I like that.
So says the guy with a Wall Street poster on his wall.
Yes. Hail to fucking Michael Douglas and Wall Street.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so I think that I also wanted to put a little shout out towards when he's dead at the end and he's laying on the bed and you see the blood start to come out of his head and there's something moving. It's still the actor. Like you can tell it's still the actor, and then they switch it out for the dummy. And then that's when the bugs start coming out. And I appreciate that they took the time to do the little thing with the actual actor before they switch you out for the dummy, because it's obvious that it's a dummy. But I appreciated the little bit that they did there to make it a little more believable.
That's what I love so much about the Tasmanian Devil was they took a chance on that one. Like I thought it was in your face. I just thought that fucking really worked. Like if this movie hadn't had those scenes with that Tasmanian Devil, I would have almost felt a little bit gypped. Like it really brought the creep show. It just did.
Well, it's one of the things Savini, and one of the things I watched last night, Savini actually said that George called up. He's like, right before they were watching the final screening, as a group, he's like, I just want you to know I have to apologize. Like we really cut a lot of the shots of Fluffy out. Just the way they edited it down, because the guy who edited it is actually the guy who edited Star Wars. I don't know how Romero got it, but he got that. That's the editor. So as he's going through it, he just shaved more and more of it off, saying, we got to go the Jaws route. We got to go the Jaws route. The less we see, the better. And Savini actually thanked him because it like made what he felt was a mediocre puppet really scary. And really, this movie, that creature is legendary for this movie. I mean, when you think you got bugs, you got the zombie, but Fluffy is the face of Creepshow.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Even more so than the creep,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was great, and it really needed that one scene of extreme gore when it bites into the guy's face and his neck. It just it needed it. The movie had to have it. It had to have it, and it needed that jump scare as well, because that's where for the 1 minute I was spooked, and I want to be spooked in a horror movie. So you guys got anything else on this bug scene?
It is what it is. It's just it's real great actor given great dialogue with the creepiest thing you could really do, which is bugs.
Yeah,
It's
and
iconic.
he totally pulled it off by himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great acting. A lot
Nobody
of guys
ever
can't
else
pull it
comes
off.
into that room, so he does it all himself pretty much.
It's the sign of a great actor. Like I just watched a movie with Robert Redford where he is stranded on a sailboat for like 30 days. And, he literally has probably 10 lines in 2 hours. And I'm just watching this movie going, okay, I'm totally into this. You're fucking Robert Redford, and this is why you kick ass. You're a great actor. Yeah. So now we're going to get the final half of the first story, if you will.
Right.
And I fucking love this story.
All right, so the wraparound story with Billy concludes the next morning when two garbage men, including a cameo by our practical effects guru Tom Savini, discover the comic book next to the trash can in front of Billy's house. They leaf through it, saying how much they and their kids enjoy the comics. They discover that somebody has clipped a mail-in coupon for a genuine Haitian voodoo doll.
Awesome.
Inside the house, Billy's father, Stan, suddenly suffers neck pain while up in his bedroom. Billy stabs a voodoo doll wearing a piece of his father's shirt. He stabs it repeatedly with a pin as payback for Stan tossing out his favorite comic book. Like each story in the comic book, this live-action scene of Billy stabbing the voodoo doll becomes an illustrated comic book picture, and as the camera pulls back, we see that the comic's host, the Creep, is holding the second issue of the Creepshow comic book in his bony hands, with Billy and his voodoo doll adorning the cover. The Creep laughs, and a nearby candle flame goes out, pulling the scene into darkness. All right, guys, have at it.
I would like to submit that Billy is a fucked up little kid, okay? I want to submit that maybe Billy's been caught killing cats in the neighborhood. I want to submit that Billy needed that smack in the face, that his parents are finally at that point. I don't think his father was necessarily bad. I think his father was saying, this kid is a little serial killer. I need to stop this immediately. The kid is sneaking horror magazines into the house at this age. And here is my evidence. All right, we've all been little kids mad at our parents. You know, you didn't get what you wanted. I hate you. Fuck you. I wish I was not, you weren't my mommy and daddy. All right, he's killing his father. His father's down in the kitchen about to have a cardiac arrest because this kid is jamming a fucking pin gleefully into his father's chest. His father's like, ugh. He's killing his father. He's a little psycho. So now I am going to submit that this is the young Billy from Black Christmas. This is the origin of your. Look at Tony rolling his eyes. Tony's rolling his eyes. He's like, "Don't do it, dude. This is Billy from Black Christmas."
You have reached before, but this is like the long. Like we're with 75-foot cast into the ocean for that one.
Oh, God. I did that for you. I didn't really think this was Billy from Black Christmas. But yeah, I want to just say, I think this kid is fucked up. And I think his parents realized that. His father was at the end of his rope with him. And just fucking knock it off, you little shit. And now the kid's going to kill his dad. So there it is. That's my final thought on this story.
Can anybody follow that up?
I just thought the dad was a dick.
No, he's a good. Look at the toys Billy has. This isn't a dick. This man buys his son anything he wants.
The mother does.
Thank you.
Mother does.
No,
the mother wants to protect him. You can see when he walks out of the room, she gives the look like she wants to go see him, wants to go comfort him, but no, she can't because she's going to get her smack if she does.
Let me tell you why that theory doesn't hold water, okay? This woman is only given money to go buy groceries. She doesn't have her own money. She can't go buy him expensive toys. Dad won't let that happen.
No, you know why? Because mom's in charge of Christmas. Dad sits on the couch, drinks his eggnog, has his smokes, watches like, oh, yeah, that's nice. We got you that. What do we get him again? He's that father. Yeah, okay. He's the 80s father. Has no idea what his wife's buying the kid for Christmas. The kid got everything for that. She's in charge of buying everything. She's the reason he has it. Yes, he's the hardworking one, distributing the money. You know, I think you're right. If we want to go down that route, I think she is the kept home, home owned. What am I looking for? Stay-at-home wife. Yeah. Homemaking wife. And it's you can see it in the way she's sewing nervously when she's talking to him. It's just he's like, that's why God made fathers, babe. And she's just like looks at him in disgust because she hates him as well.
Yeah. I think also when she notices the t-shirt, there's a piece of the t-shirt's missing. She looks at it and she goes and puts it right back. She doesn't say anything. She doesn't.
Never even picked up on that before.
Yep. She picks up the t-shirt to iron it, notices the hole in it, and she just goes and just puts it aside. She doesn't say a thing.
I'm going to go back and watch that. I've never noticed that before.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's awesome. The yellow t-shirt. Yep.
I love it.
Wow.
Yeah. Little Billy went on to be a serial killer.
Well, if you see what happens in the next one, you can see where Billy ends up.
Oh, really?
I don't know if it's Billy, but it's the same wraparound. There's a little kid being bullied.
Okay.
Oh, well, now you're gonna have to watch it.
I liked the second Creepshow. Not as much.
Not as much, but it's still solid. The third one, god fucking terrible. Don't even talk about
I
it.
didn't see
No
the
one
third
even
one.
knows it's there. I think it's called Ritual, and it's only one story. It's Creepshow Ritual,
Oh.
and or is that Tales from the Crypt? I could be getting confused here.
Yeah, I don't think I saw any of the other ones of these,
That-
the creep shows.
2 is fun. There's 3 stories in the wraparound, and the second one is the best. It's the Raft.
Oh, that one, yes.
So good.
Oh, it's on the list.
Did George Romero do that one too?
Nope. Stephen King wrote everything, but George Romero didn't do it,
Okay.
unfortunately.
All right, well, let's hit the recasting couch quickly.
All right.
Okay, so Tony, go ahead. Who would you cut
Oh,
from this
shit.
movie, and who would you replace them with?
Start with somebody else. There's too many actors in this that are just perfect. I'm sure I
Mickey,
could
who
find
would you
somebody.
cut from this movie, and who would you replace them with?
I was thinking about this earlier. Like, honestly, I don't know if I would do anyone, but if you had a knife to my throat and I had to pick someone, I would recast Jordy Verrill and put Billy Bob Thornton in there.
Oh, good one. I
Ah,
like
that's
that.
a good
I
one.
like
Really
Because
good
he
one.
could be goofy and serious.
Right.
I like it.
I was also going to replace Jordy, and I had 2 actors that would have worked from the time. You could have either gone with Steve Martin, and it would have been like in his jerk era.
Phase.
So, yeah, the jerk phase. Or with Robin Williams from his Mork and Mindy phase. Either one would have worked fine for me. I think they could have played it a little bit more serious with a little better comic timing, and it may have made the whole episode a little more powerful without being over the top. So, but I was fine with Stephen King. I thought he did a great job. But those would be my 2. Delin?
So I'm gonna replace Adrienne Barbeau, and not because she did anything wrong. She's fantastic, but I would like to see Terry Garr there.
She can't be mean.
Yeah.
That
I
would
want
ruin
her
right.
to. I
That would
want
be
her to.
everything wrong in the world. She's another one of those like, I love Terry Garr. Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a
Yeah,
sweetheart, but
you
that's why I
can't.
want to see her do it. I
No.
bet she could do an awesome job at it.
I have to say,
questionable, huh?
no, we're not replacing. No, that's not going to work. Okay, Tony, who are you going to replace her with? Give us a better actress.
For Billy.
Yes.
I see. I can't go for that time. I would love to see some against casting, against type. I would like to see someone like America's Sweetheart, like Sandra Bullock. I would love to see Sandra Bullock be a wicked twat.
That's the whole reason why you want to see them do something different. Just like
Yeah.
Leslie Nielsen was so serious. I want to see somebody who's normally a sweetheart be Billy.
Yeah, I really can't think of anybody for any. I mean, even Stephen King, who to me is the weakest one of in every single person in this movie. I don't want to see anyone else do it. Billy Bob
Yeah.
Thornton is that's a great one because Sling
It
Blade
is.
showed us what he could do.
Right.
But I mean,
Definitely.
it's a top 5 movie for me. Solid. It's never left the top 5. I just
Yeah.
love this movie.
It is. It was good. It was funny because talking it through with you guys, it raised because I had a score written down, and after we just talked about it for an hour and 39 minutes and realized how deep some of these stories were and how much more was under the surface and how a lot of them really just felt like the beginning of a bigger movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
These were all great ideas. Almost any one of these, except maybe Father's Day, could have been a full-length feature. Because you just see where the movie could go. Like Father's Day kind of ended with him killing his family and then just maybe the corpse disappears. But the rest of these could have gone on way further. The Tasmanian Devil, the alien space goo, the cockroaches could have who knows? You know what I'm saying.
Like something that tied me over was like the second to the bottom from me. For I mean, literally forever. It's like, oh, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's a one-trick pony. You adding the level that he's been doing this all along, whole different, like that puts it like number 2 to me for now. Like, because it adds a whole new dimension to his character that it's not just he's mad for revenge. He's just a psycho.
Mhm.
Right.
That
Yeah.
is awesome.
The little kid in the voodoo one, I mean, this is how Halloween starts. He kills his sister. And
Nah.
in this one, he kills his father. I mean, it could lead on to a bigger movie, a franchise. You know, this little kid grows up to be a fucking total psycho. All right, so let's give our rewatch scores. Mickey, what is your rewatch score for Creepshow?
My rewatch score is 5. I mean, I've seen this movie. I've lost count of how many times I've seen this movie. Like I could probably recite it verbatim. And I have very fond memories of watching this as a younger kid with some of my family. So yeah, definitely a 5. I don't think, like I said, maybe my least favorite was probably the bug or maybe the tide. But the crate, I mean, you can't beat the crate. Like that one was this movie for me.
Delyn, what is your rewatch score for Creepshow?
So, I mean, I think if you were a younger person today and you watch this, you might have a hard time getting past the 1980s of it all. You might be like, oh, to some of the effects, but frankly, this is a blueprint where a lot of other stories have taken off from, and you gotta respect the classics. And this started with a classic from the EC comics, which were like what these people who made this movie were reading when they were kids: Stephen King, George Romero, and you gotta respect that. So I'm gonna give it a 4.5.
4.5. Okay. I for all the things you just said, same thing. I mean, this is an OG. It set up so many other things to come after it that just stole from it or borrowed from it. It's a fucking great movie. I liked it a little bit more than you did. My only knock on it would be, a couple of them went a little longer than maybe they should have. It's a 4.75 for me. It's almost a perfect movie. And I want to say 5, but it's a 4.75 for me. So Tony, what do you think?
I mean, Dylan that was a great summary right there. It is a classic. It influenced everything. It had every scream actor in it, all the horror icons, everybody we grew up with, like, you got 3 characters from The Fog in there, you got 4 characters from Escape from New York. It's like again, the incestuous 80s of everybody's in everybody's movies. This one seemed to bring them all together, and it was written great, it was shot beautifully, the pacing to me was perfect. I agree the crate could have been slimmed down a little bit. Again, but it's Father's Day in the Crate, just perfect to me. Again, nostalgia. My dad taking me to see it, one of the first rated R movies I saw, goes a long way. It's the first rated R movie I showed my son. So again, it's passing the tradition on. I've only given Jaws 5. This gets a 5. Totally.
Oh, good. All right, cool. So we get 2 5s, a 4.75, and a 4.5. That would bring it to a 4.5, but I am going to change my score and make it a 5 too. So this one is going to be a 4.75 because Delyn just doesn't get it. And I'm joking. No, it's a 4.75. If you haven't seen Creepshow, what are you waiting for? Go see it. It's a great fucking movie. We will be back next week with Tony again. We get him 2 weeks in a row. We're going to be doing the original, well, not the original, but the 80s thing with Kurt Russell.
The
Not
best
Chris
thing.
Christopherson.
Such a good one.
Yeah, I'm super excited for this one. I haven't
love
seen
this
it since
movie.
I was a little kid. I saw the remake. I thought it was great. I thought doing 4 people was awesome tonight. I thought we
Yeah.
came together.
Yeah. Big fan.
We brought it home. So listen, guys, if you're listening to the show, and I know you are, because I see all the listens in the analytics, all I'm asking is when you see us put the show up, just share it. It takes 2 seconds. Just fucking share it. It takes 2 seconds. It's free. It helps the podcast grow. You're listening to the show at work. You're enjoying it. We're giving you this entertainment, and all we're asking is just share the podcast. So please, I'm begging you, share the podcast.
Like, share, subscribe.
Don't you have to say it like the kids these days? Smash that share button.
Yeah, smash that fucking share button. As always, I have fun watching the movie from opposite ends of the house with you. Mickey, great show like always. Tony, you've been fucking killing it on this podcast, man. Like I said, you're giving us like a little stink of a real podcast. Like when you come on, like sound like a real podcast when Tony's here.
I'm just pulling shit out of my ass. That's what I do.
And then Mickey, you're going to be back with us after Tony's because Pat is on a 1 week suspension for
Mhm.
bulldozing fucking Office Space. And we're going to try and pick something awesome for that one, something that'll hopefully bring in the listens. Delyn, tell them where they can find the podcast.
All right. You can find the podcast on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. All three of them are at Hey, Did You Ever See That Movie? And if you'd like to send us an email, you can send us an email at Hey, Did You Ever See That Movie at gmail.com.
All right. And we have a sister podcast now called Breaking Vinyl, which I am pleased to say is doing remarkably good. I don't know why, but it is caught on like wildfire. It will be dropped tomorrow where we will be discussing Velvet Revolver's Contraband. So you can find that anywhere you find this podcast. That's Breaking Vinyl. And until next time, I have one question for you. Hey, did you ever see that movie? See you next time.
Bye.
Yeah, I didn't look over this script at all yet. I wrote it like in my spare time, so I don't know how this is going to go. Okay, ready?
I doctored it. You're fine.
29, 28,
Honey.
27. All right. I love how pissed she gets you. All right, ready?
Because you do it every week.
What?